Hi, my name is John Vigna, and I'm an assistant professor of teaching at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, BC, and pedagogy chair in the creative writing program. I'm a fiction writer and teach fiction to undergrads and grads in our minor, BFA major, and MFA programs. I'd like to acknowledge the physical space from where I'm calling from today. I live, work, and write from the fishing village of Steveston, just south of Vancouver, where my university is located. Steveston is situated on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of the Coast Salish, Tsawwassen, Stalo, Kwantlen, Chemainus, and Musqueam people. I'm grateful for the privilege of living and creating here, and I'm grateful to all of you for taking the time out of your day to attend this talk. And I'm particularly grateful to both Alexa and Rachel for all the time and effort they put into hosting this virtual conference. My short talk will discuss a recent project pre-pandemic in scheduling peer reviews of my teaching for every class during one semester. This face-to-face course was a large lecture Intro to Writing Fiction course with 250 students, a course I have taught nearly 20 times. Now the first question you might have is, why on earth would I do such a thing? This whole project of mine, which was dubbed the Peer Review of Teaching Marathon, started after I read Atul Gawande's book, Better, A Surgeon's Notes on Performance. Here was a top surgeon who rigorously reviewed his own professional practice by inviting other surgeons to job shadow him while he also did the same in return. He engaged in multiple conversations with surgeons across the world and considered diverse approaches and practices to improve his work. Gawande's experience inspired me to challenge my own teaching practice, which, after nearly 20 years, I had a desire to reinvigorate. My student evaluations had been strong, but they'd started to show signs of slippage as my service and research commitments increased. And more worrisome was that I felt like my focus and ability had plateaued. I wanted to spend a semester thinking about teaching, researching it, refining my practice, and challenging my pedagogy. Gawande's approach seemed daunting, but I decided that if I was asking my students to take risks, shouldn't I, too, take risks in challenging my own teaching? Now, teaching like writing and like learning is always a risk. When I set out to reconsider my teaching practice, I decided I should first turn to understanding what students really wanted and expected from their instructors. And it turns out that students don't just want good grades, they want high-quality teaching that leads to meaningful learning experiences. But what does high-quality teaching mean? There are many texts devoted to the pedagogy and practice of teaching, and some of the key qualities that students look for in their instructors might be boiled down to these 5 themes. Well-organized and clear classes with clear overall communication, a respect for students, enthusiasm and knowledge of subject matter, availability during and outside of class, and practical knowledge and experience over the theoretical. If I was going to truly take a risk in the desire to provide high-quality teaching, that would mean holding myself accountable. I engaged the help and guidance of an educational developer, Isabel Iqbal, from our Center of Teaching and Learning Technology, and we met bi-weekly during this project to discuss the goals, pedagogy, and teaching practices, and to check in on how things were going. Isabel also helped set up peer reviews of teaching from colleagues across disciplines on campus. It was important to go beyond the Faculty of Arts, where a School of Creative Writing is housed, and engage in teaching discussions with instructors from other disciplines, particularly STEM. Her support and guidance in the project was invaluable, and if you're at all interested in learning more about our work together in this project, you can read about it in an article we published through the International Journal for Academic Development. Some of the guiding principles for my peer review of teaching marathon included: try at least one new activity or active learning approach in the classroom that I'd never tried before. Try to introduce at least one new reading or craft discussion topic and facilitate. Introduce revised or new prezzies to support the in-class sessions. Make my teaching practice transparent to the students. That is, tell them from day one what we're doing, why, and try to eliminate as much as possible any mystery around pedagogical choices. And engage in pedagogy and classroom practice discussions with reviewers and visitors to my classroom, and in some cases reciprocate PRTs as part of the process. For every class, at least one and up to 3 different colleagues from my unit and units across campus sat in on my class, offered formative peer reviews of teaching. I met with each of them a week or 2 prior to the class that they observed, and then again a couple weeks after to discuss their reflections. And as well, I reciprocated their generosity in doing the same to them. It was, as Dickens once said, the best of times and the worst of times. It was the best of times because the conversations I had with instructors on teaching and pedagogy were invaluable, something I hadn't anticipated when I envisioned the project. Each instructor offered their own perspective on teaching, shared their pedagogy and approach, and also talked about the various challenges that they continue to grapple with. We talked about everything from big picture topics of burnout, marking, managing students, etc., to the granular topics like active learning strategies, close reading and craft techniques, low stakes versus high stakes assignment design, and facilitating difficult conversations. These discussions with my peers were an absolute masterclass in teaching. While I felt the fatigue pile up as the semester marched on, the peer reviews offered a deeper purpose into what I was doing, an ongoing conversation with myself, the ways I thought about teaching, the exchange of ideas with peers, and the sheer challenge of trying new strategies each class. The list grew as the semester neared its conclusion, and it was difficult to mentally turn it off. Not being able to turn it off felt, at times, like the worst of times. I was incredibly tired throughout the semester, more so than normal. I rolled a roller coaster of emotions that ranged from having confidence that I was offering good teaching to feeling unsettled, vulnerable, and lacking confidence at whether I should be teaching at all. I was sharing my practice with colleagues on a weekly basis, taking risks each class, and in a constant state of moving between conscious incompetence and conscious competence. As the weeks of the semester passed, I realized, of course, that this is what my students were experiencing. Varying degrees of confusion at times, sometimes a lack of confidence, the ground perpetually shifting beneath their feet, a relentless engagement in learning, application and success, application and making mistakes. They, like I, were in a constant state of deep learning, something that I was acknowledging each week. Their transparency, in turn, challenged me to revise my teaching by embracing a pedagogy of radical compassion, a pedagogy of kindness, where every decision I make now asks, how does this best support my students? From the start of the project, I was transparent about the peer review of teaching project with my students. I told them that I'd planned to try different approaches throughout the semester, that colleagues would be attending our classes, that some of my approaches might work and some might not. I reassured them that by taking supported risks in the classroom, it might lead to growth, and emphasized that I would be learning side by side with them. If I was willing to do it, then they might also consider doing it. The students responded favorably, commenting throughout the semester that if I was taking these risks, then they too felt supported to take their own risks in their creative work. And this shift in the classroom helped foster a deeper sense of trust and connection, build a community of learning where students could voice their struggles and uncertainties and be open to the different viewpoints of their peers. What I noticed was they were deeply committed to their own learning, and their creative work reflected this. There's some overlap between what we might assess in our own teaching and what students look for in teachers, but how might we not only assess our effectiveness but seek active strategies for improving our teaching? There's a few things I thought of with this. 1, start with the basic self-assessment of your teaching. We know the value of asking our students to be self-reflective. Why not apply that to ourselves? 2, If you'd already keep a teaching journal, now is a really good time to perhaps take it up. Jot down a few lines after class, student meeting, or anything to do with your practice that captures the experience of how it went. Was there room for improvement, and if so, what would you do differently next time? Review that notebook periodically during the semester and review it again between semesters to help set up your course for the next term. 3. Consider videotaping yourself or having a colleague videotape you at least once during the semester. When you're ready to review the tape, first check your teaching journal notes from that session and then check the tape to see how your notes compare with the actual tape. When reviewing the tape, make further notes to develop work on areas that are weak while playing to your strengths. 4. Consider some of the well-known strategies we all use for checking in with your students. 1-minute papers, keyword lists, 3-minute key point summaries, muddy points, various strategies to sort of engage and see where they're at with their learning as a check-in. 5. Find a colleague, or better, a group of colleagues with whom you can set up a small group to meet regularly and discuss pedagogical and teaching practice. Attend one another's classes while offering informal feedback on your own practice. And 6, schedule formative peer review of teachings with trained colleagues within your unit, or better, outside of your discipline. So where to from here? How do you start? As with writing, when we teach, we need to remind ourselves to let go of perfection and to embrace the process of a deeper practice. While we don't necessarily need to go through a peer review of teaching marathon to extend our teaching practice, a commitment to learning, the same commitment we ask of our students, is more than enough. Start small and work on a couple of changes in your practice, rather than completely overhauling your teaching. You'll soon see a dramatic improvement in your teaching and, more importantly, in your students' learning. Thank you for your time today.